So hi guys, I thought it'd be a good idea to literally shoot my end of month wrap up. Well, there was a police standoff a block from my house and we can't go anywhere anyway. I figure, what the hell? Why not? I got nothing else to do. So, yep, here I am guys. Literally doing my February reading wrap up while trapped in the house during a police standoff. Isn't that lovely? So join me, won't you? Because I have nowhere else to be at the moment. So anyway, guys, welcome to Geeks Love Dogs Book Dragons. And let's do the February wrap-up, and then we can move on to March. Hope you all are doing better than I am today. And anything weird happens, or you hear gunshots, or I suddenly cut off, you now know why. So let's talk about what I read. I started off the month with The Malevolent Seven by Sebastian de Castell, a standalone fantasy in a world where wizards are badass action heroes and not frumpy, pointy hat wearing, wand shopping gentlemen or party trick casting, smoking, adorable, lovable scoundrels. And it's a fantastic book. I loved it, and it was a great way to start off the month. And that means I'm definitely going back for more Sebastian de Castell. I also did a video review for the book, a short one that's up on the site. And if you're interested, take a look. I followed up that with a Comixology read of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ultimate Black and White Collection Volume 3. I had my issues with the beginning of it. The end was fun, but I'm a Turtles fan. Gotta love the Turtles, Turtle Power. And it's kind of nice to go back and read the original Eastman and Laird stories in their original form. It's fun. So there's a bit of nostalgia there, along with just the entertainment value of reading it. So I'm going to be going on with that further in the coming months. Also in ebook form, I read Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. A slow bit of work. Cloud Atlas without the pretentiousness. It ended up being okay near the end. It's definitely something that's a journey type book that you gotta take your time with and enjoy being immersed in the world versus looking for the action all the way through, because there's no real payoff until the very end. It's a pretty dense book, so it's definitely something you have to be one of those readers who enjoys a long immersive journey and willingly and patiently enough able to wait until the end to find out how it comes out. So if I'm going through this and I screw up, there's going to be more errors than normal for me, and that's saying something. It's because I really just want to do this video and get it done. Well, all that's going outside, just in case, who knows? I mean, I'm not expecting anything bad to happen, but I just would rather do it and get it done. And so if I screw up a lot, please be forgiving. Next up, I read Rage by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. I wanted to read that as a kind of a look back to see how it's aged in the world I now live in. Like, what timing is really good on this, like what's going on outside, versus how I originally read it in the 80s, which was a whole different world. Reading a book about classroom hostages and that level of real world type violence in the 80s was a totally different experience, a totally different mindset, because then it was a story, it was fiction. Reading it now, there's a definite sense of connection to what's actually been happening in the world over the last couple decades since. And it's definitely an interesting an interesting thought process on where we've come from. And I did do a video for that read as well that is up on the site if you want to take a look. Next up, I read Third from the Sun by Richard Matheson. Richard Matheson, yes, of I Am Legend and Hell House fame. This is a book of short stories, a collection of his sci-fi oriented short stories. And I really did not get along with that well. I didn't really enjoy it. It was kind of a chore to get through. And Richard Matheson obviously is a great writer. He's done some great stuff. But this just did not work for me. And if you want more in-depth discussion on some of these books, please check out my weekly updates. And I discuss the books a little more at length. Also, I do short book reviews on stuff that interests me that I want to talk about. I've only done a few. They're pretty short and they are up on the channel, individual book reviews. Check them out if you want to hear more about those. So next up is Solo Leveling, Volume 10 by Dubu. This is a Korean manhwa, or a manga if you prefer, that is based around a dungeon hunter. It is like a lit RPG style storytelling, where this dungeon hunter, Jinwoo Song, is pretty bad at his job. He's downright terrible at it, but he gets reborn and comes out with new abilities and becomes extremely powerful and has to go into dungeons and clean them out before the time limit is up, or the monsters inside will spill out into our world. It's one of my favorite mangas. Love it to death. It's great. There is a anime of it. I haven't watched it yet, but it's definitely something. It's probably my favorite manga of all time. Next up, we have The Suicide Motor Club by Christopher Buehlman, which is a thought-provoking look into vampires who travel America's highways, creating accidents to cover up their victims' deaths. So instead of ripping them open and drinking their blood in a way that would be suspicious, they cause accidents with muscle cars and use those accidents to find victims to drain, to feed on, etc. And it includes a revenge story of a sort along with it. This is not an action-packed story like you might think, even though despite the fact that there's muscle cars tearing around the country full of vampires killing people, it's not quite like that. It's a more deeper look at the characterizations of these bloodsuckers and the people that it affects. There is a couple action scenes, but it's, if you know Buehlman's writing, it isn't over-the-top action-y, which I think would have been fun. But there's a revenge story, and there's a story of these vampires and how they're living their life and how they became who they became. And funny enough, the revenge story actually made me think of this book I read last month, this bizarro splatterpunk horror novel, because there is a revenge story that is similar in some ways, but it harkened back to that because I had just read it. So the graphic novel I actually pulled during my TBR to begin the month, my TBR game, was Usagi Yojimbo by Stan Sakai, Bunraku and Other Stories. I believe it's volume 34. It isn't numbered at this point, since they went to colorized versions of the book. From the black and white, they've changed a lot of formatting in it. But in any case, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is fantastic. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an amazingly overlooked graphic novel. They came out at the same time on the same comic company as the Turtles did. The Turtles blew up thanks to the cartoon, and Usagi actually has made over the years appearances in the Turtles cartoon, but he has never, until recently, he got a prequel cartoon on, I think it was Netflix, and it wasn't quite the same because they weren't actually dealing with the story as it is in the books, but he doesn't get the love he deserves. It's brilliantly done. Stan Sakai writes these stories with these animals in such a way that it teaches you a great deal about the true culture and lifestyle of post-samurai Japan. And it's about Usagi, who is a wandering samurai, a ronin, who's traveling the countryside, meeting people, taking up jobs, and getting himself into trouble. It's absolutely just a beautiful story. Been reading it since the beginning. I have all the graphic novels, and if you want something new to read in graphic novels, pick up the first one, the first collection and check it out. It's fabulous. It's fantastic. I can't say enough good about what Stan Sakai has done with this story over the several years, since the '80s with it. It still holds up all these years later. The new writing is still great. Definitely check it out if you're into graphic novels, if you're into Japanese culture, if you're into great art and great writing. Anyway, yeah, definitely check it out. I also, on ebook this month, finished War Song, the Price of Power prequel by Michael Michel, during a day when we had severe power outages in several block area, and I was stuck in the dark with nothing to read. I had that on my Kindle, which, of course, gives you light so you can read off of it. And I plugged that in, checked it out, and yeah, it's a prequel to his Price of Power series, and it's grim, dark, kind of brutal fantasy. That's a novella, by the way, and it was interesting. I got through it without hating it. I'm more interested in what he will do on a full length book. I think he will shine much better being able to open up the story, other than how contained this was to a specific character. And I'm definitely looking forward to reading what he does there because there was so much potential here. So I enjoyed it, but as somebody who doesn't get along great with fantasy stories that are short, that are novellas and short stories, this would never have, it would have been hard for it to actually do a lot for me. But he managed to catch my attention, and that's enough. So I'll be reading the rest of his books, his Price of Power series, and that's that. Like I said, sorry, I'm going to make some mistakes here. I'm kind of like keeping an eye out the door, and what's going on as I'm doing this. So please forgive me. I also, in e-form, read Winter Steel, which is Cradle #8 in the Will White by Will White. This is the Cradle series #8. Excuse me. I have now read 8 books in the series, and I'm still just not enjoying it. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not getting my attention. It's not making me want to know what happens next. It's progression fantasy. It's lit RPG. I said with Solo Leveling, it's not something it's something I already like. It's not something that I'm opposed to, and I've read several of them. In fact, I have a few series ongoing in ebook form that are in that style. But I cannot just wrap myself around these characters. I'm not enjoying it more than it's okay type read. But since I have all 12, I believe it is, I will finish the series, and hopefully by the end it can, grab me, catch my attention. I'll look back on it and think, oh, okay, that was why, that was something. But at this point, I'm just not feeling it. I'm not loving it. I don't mind it. I can get through it it's just not something that if I didn't already own, I would go buy now. And finally, I finished up the month with Apache Dawn, Always Outnumbered, Never Outgunned. It is a nonfiction story about British Air Corps pilots during the summer of 2007 in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom and what they dealt with. It was a fantastic book. It was really well written. It was really interesting. It showed you what these soldiers and their teams went through, how brutal the conditions they were in, how hard it is to do what they do. It was a book I really enjoyed reading. I got a lot out of it. It was definitely an experience to see, especially from the British point of view. I've read books from, American soldiers, especially World War II veterans, books and such. But this was a different experience, seeing something that I lived through, seeing it from a British point of view. It was very interesting. Obviously, saying I enjoyed it comes with certain caveats because it's hard to enjoy a book that's really about true life suffering and horror. But I'm talking about the book itself, how it was written, the stories they told. It was it was enjoyable to experience it as the author told it. It was well done. It was intelligently written. It was empathetically written. And it gives you a whole different perspective on what these soldiers have to deal with and how hard it is to do what they do from a mental and physical standpoint. Obviously, we know war is hell. And this gives you a close up example of 100 days of hell. So, anyway, those are what I finished. That would be my reading for the month of February. Welcome to March. So, like I said, I did do 2 review videos for The Malevolent Seven by Sebastian de Castell and for Rage by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. Do I really have to say that? Everybody knows who he is, right? I also did weekly wrap-ups each week, and of course, beginning the month, I did my TBR game to pick these books. And spoiler, there is a new TBR game that is already up that picked my books for March, and I'm going to be a bit overwhelmed. So I really would love for you to come back and see how badly I fail that. Go check out the TBR game video, see the new game I created. It's pretty good. It's pretty sirens. It's pretty interesting, I think, as far as I put some work into it to try and make it kind of fun, to do something a little different, to make it more my personality. So check it out, and I hope you enjoy it. Like I said, come back and see if I crash and burn or if I can make it through at least close to all the books that it gave me to read. Anyway, so let's talk about the book of the month. So my book of the month will be The Malevolent Seven by Sebastian de Castell. Yay! It's like I said, it was a fantastic read. Fantasy, action, fun, craziness. It was a standalone. It made it even better because it was all in there. I didn't have to come back for more fun characters. It was just a blast to read. And like I said, I did a video of it. If you want to hear a little more, or check out the weekly wrap up that started February, and I talk about it in there. In any case, that will be all I have for the month of February, and it's done and gone, and we can move on to March now. I appreciate you showing up. Please like, subscribe, comment, check out our store at geekslovedogs.com. See if you can find a t-shirt or a mug that is geeky enough for you. So again, thank you for joining me. Hope to see you back in the next video, and check out the TBR video to see what I'm reading, and love you guys. Have fun. Well, I wish I had a better camera. More than an hour later, it's still going on. They're armoring up. They have long guns. They're still blocking off the street. That's right outside my window down the street, 100 yards or so down. But yep, still going on. Fun.